Welcome to In Focus with Ajaz Haider. Last Thursday, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi invited Kashmiri politicians belonging to the People's Alliance of Gupkar Declaration to work out a settlement. A day before the meeting was the death anniversary of Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, the founder of Janjua, the party which birthed the present-day Bharatiya Janata Party. Mukherjee, who had fallen out with Pandit Nehru, formed the party after consultation with RSS leader M.S. Golwalkar. Mukherjee was dead set against occupied Kashmir's special status and Article 35A. He was imprisoned by the state government and died in custody after suffering a heart attack. The late Atal Bihari Vajpayee, another Indian Prime Minister, who was Mukherjee's secretary at that time, once accused Nehru of conspiring to get Mukherjee killed. Modi's government fulfilled Mukherjee's dream. Last week, he chose to meet the PAGD leaders to discuss a settlement. This evening, we will discuss the takeaways from that meeting, as also two questions. How relevant are PAGD leaders to post-August 5th Kashmir? And how effective would Modi be to draw on their political differences to create a division? Let's not forget that the PAGD dropped its precondition for a meeting with Modi. Omar Abdullah is already on record as saying that it's futile to ask the Modi government to restore 370. That ball's in India's Supreme Court. Let's get to our panel. I'm joined by Ambassador Tehmina, a former Foreign Secretary, Iftikhar Gillani, an eminent Kashmiri author and journalist who's currently editor planning and coordination at Anadolu Agency, and Ravi Srivastava, a political and economic affairs commentator from India. Let me begin with Mr. Srivastava here. Mr. Srivastava, how do you look at the symbolism of the fact that this happens, right after the death anniversary of Mr. Mukherjee? And then, there are 3 or 4 takeaways that I would want to hear from you, given your impression of what you think the meeting was about.
I would sum up the whole thing as a flop show, because the kind of atrocities, the kind of torture of Kashmiris which happened post 5th August, abrogation of Article 370 and 35A, cannot be compensated. And I don't think that any party can afford to keep silent on that. The all bonhomie which was shown in Delhi by the leaders completely evaporated the moment they returned back to Srinagar. You have seen the statements coming from Mahbuba asking that the talks should be with all stakeholders. The kind of statement from Omar Abdullah that this before the delimitation and all that, the statehood should be restored for J&K. So those kind of statements, and you see that BJP now is on a very thin ice in India, and it is named as Bharatiya Jhagadalu Party. They are at loggerheads with everyone, right from Kanyakumari to Kashmir, whether it is their own state in Delhi, whether it is Bengal, whether it is Maharashtra or any other state. So I think this whole exercise of calling people and showing India that we are very keen to resolve this thorny issue which is going on for last more than 30 years. We want to do this, we want to do that, but I don't think that any fruitful outcome will be there. Post abrogation of Article 370, the kind of things which were shown that Kashmir will be on a highway to progress, and that Dilli ki duri and Dil se duri, all kind of dialogues were thrown, that the Kashmir will become a paradise once again. The all displaced Kashmiri Pandits will be brought back in Srinagar. The people across the country can buy the land in Kashmir. They can put up the big plants over there so that the locals get employment. All that went into thin air. We have not seen anything happen in last 2 years. Rather, 1.5 years saw the posts of the leaders behind the underground or behind the house arrest and all such things. So nothing has been achieved out of that Article 370 and 35A abrogation. And
Right.
I don't think that this exercise is going to help anyway further.
Okay. Before I ask you the next question, Mr. Srivastava, just corroboration of sorts of what you were saying. I have in front of me a recent op-ed by Sushil Aran. This is in the wire.in. And its subheading is a flawed model of politics. This is with reference to what Mr. Srivastava said, referring to BJP as the Bharatiya Jagdalu party. Mr. Aran writes, India finds itself in this position because Modi and the BJP have a model of politics that leaves no scope for negotiated compromise with political adversaries, let alone the weak. It is all about using coercive power of the state to reinforce majoritarian messaging, the mobilization of the party base, the building of a personality cult, and management of media through fictitious optics of strength. This is Mr. Sushil Aran writing for the wire.in. Mr. Srivastava, one final question. There is also a sense that Mr. Modi is trying these optics for this upcoming September visit to the United States, where he would be meeting the new US president. And behind the scenes, the new US administration has been asking the BJP government to begin to clean up its act in occupied Kashmir. So how far is this correct?
Azaz, you are right. The pressure is building up, and it is not happening today. It has been right since the 5th of August 2019. I think India has been criticized in international forums, Middle East countries, and all others who have witnessed the kind of the tortures which happened over there. It was a complete military Raj in Kashmir. And recently you must have seen that a lot of new overtures are visible. You must have heard about in Qatar, the India's foreign minister, Mr. Jai Shankar, meeting some Taliban groups and some other people in Afghanistan. The talks are going on. So this is all to try to show the world that we have neutralized the situation. Now there is a kind of a peace in Kashmir, and with that improved and a cosmetic face, Mr. Modi wants to meet the Joe Biden in US in the forthcoming visit.
Right.
And another aspect, another optic is that India is going to face some elections, 5 state elections in the forthcoming year. So there is a lot of discontent in the country.
Especially in Uttar Pradesh. Right. Right, and Uttarakhand and all. Thank you so much. That was Mr. Srivastava speaking with us. Let me go straight to Ambassador Janjua. Ambassador Janjua, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi has also said that this was merely for optics. There's nothing substantive about this meeting. This is also the sense of many commentators in India, including, you just heard what Mr. Srivastava said. Give me your sense of what you think Mr. Modi wants or wanted to achieve with this meeting.
Well, what Mr. Modi wants to achieve from this meeting is clearly indicated in the tweet that he did after the meeting, in which he said delimitation has to happen at a quick pace so that polls can happen in Jammu and Kashmir. Kashmir gets elected, government that gives strength to J&K's development trajectory. Basically, it is all a cover-up for the delimitation process that is being undertaken in Kashmir by the BJP government, etc. Now, delimitation would basically mean taking away lots of seats from Srinagar to Jammu, and therefore giving the semblance of democracy prevailing, and then that would basically mean that there'd be more seats which would be BJP controlled, coming from Jammu and the government that would be created in Jammu and Kashmir as a result of any elections and delimitation would be then completely controlled by the BJP. So that's one of the electoral aspect. The second aspect, I completely agree with Mr. Srivastava, that we cannot, when we talk about August 5th, we cannot just think of the statehood. We have to think about the basic problems that the people of Kashmir have faced since 5th of August, had been facing something that we've been continuously talking about all over the world in the Human Rights Council, in the UN and elsewhere, basically saying that there is a situation of human rights, of torture, of disappearances, of women being raped, of multiple, and the fact that the leadership of the Kashmiris has been locked and kept away from the people. The Gupkar Declaration people, and some have referred to it as the Gupkar Gang.
That was actually Amit Shah. That was actually Amit Shah, Modi's right-hand man.
Right. So this gang basically is looking for kind of legitimacy, and they're trying to voice some of the issues that have been voiced by the people. But at the end of the day, when you look at the points that were raised, that last point was about making the lives of the Kashmiri people better by these people who went to the meeting. So it has got nothing to do with the people of Kashmir and the aspirations of the people of Kashmir, which, as I would continue to say, have to be done in accordance with the UN Security Council resolutions. All that is being done by this meeting with the presence of the PAGD is basically to do away with UN Security Council resolutions, and this is totally unacceptable to us. It's unacceptable. One, it is illegal. Two, it does not take into account, provides no succor to the people of Jammu and Kashmir who've been suffering immeasurably since 5th August and much before that as well. So as far as Pakistan is concerned, and any diplomat of Pakistan who should be talking about the continuous situation of human rights and violations that are taking place.
Because that's the central issue. Stay with me, Ambassador Janjua. Let me go to Iftikhar Gillani. But before that, let me also welcome Zafar Qureshi, chairman of Kashmir Campaign Global, who lives in exile in London and is joining me now. Mr. Qureshi, stay with me. Let me just get Mr. Gillani's view on two things. Mr. Gillani, quickly. One, the basic takeaway from this meeting. Has Modi gained anything? Has the Gupkar lost something or gained something? And allied with the second, my question about the relevance of the PAGD leaders in post-5th August occupied and illegally annexed Kashmir.
Your question number one, yes, this meeting had two aspects. On one aspect, that what Indian diplomats could not do in the world capitals for last 2 years, this photo op at 3 p.m. on June 24th at the Prime Minister's residence, it actually relieved India quite a bit in the world capitals, and to show that it has made an outreach to the Kashmir. And on the question number two, what was the outcome? This meeting actually, revealed some another design. That is the design of the delimitation, which Mr. Janjua was just mentioning. But I can take you out that this delimitation commission under Justice Ajana Desai was formed on March 2020, and in this delimitation, the terms of references were that it had to delimit constituencies in Jammu and Kashmir, Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, Manipur, and Nagaland. And just this year, when this commission's term was extended by 1 more year, these northeastern states, they were deleted from its terms of reference. So only Jammu and Kashmir will only have in terms of reference now only Jammu and Kashmir. Now the question is, now if after August 5, as per the government of India's own declaration, India is now at any other state. It is now the part of the India. So why to single it out in this delimitation exercise? So this means that there is something behind that delimitation exercise. Now in the previous assembly, which had the 86 members. Kashmir had 46 assembly seats and Jammu had 36. Why Kashmir had 46? Because the population of Kashmir is 68.8 lakhs and Jammu's population is 53.78 lakhs. Now I will take you to the one of the proceedings of the Delimitation Commission, which happened some months ago. Since the National Conference has Lok Sabha members, so they are ex-officio member. They were boycotting this Delimitation Commission. So only the BJP was attending this Delimitation Commission proceedings. So at the Delimitation Commission proceedings, Jitendra Singh, a union minister, who's a member or ex-officio member of this Delimitation Commission, he gave a presentation and said that population should not be the criteria to distribute seats. The criteria should be the geography. So in terms of geography, the Kashmir area is 15,520 square kilometers, while the Jammu area is 26,293 square kilometers. Okay, done. Now what actually they realized later? Okay, in terms of geography, the seats may get increased for the Jammu region, but they will increase for the two Muslim majority regions, that is Pir Panchal and Chenab Valley, not for this Samba, Katwa, Udhampur and Jammu, which is Hindu majority region. So now this sinister thing which is now coming up is now out of this, since the new assembly will have the 90 seats, out of those 90 seats, 18 seats have been now declared that they will be reserved. They will be reserved for scheduled caste, means Dalits. They will be reserved for scheduled tribes. I don't know, they have not yet actually notified who will be the scheduled tribes. So and there will be some more seats which will be reserved. They will be for the Kashmiri Pandits and for this Pakistani refugees who are living in Kashmir, living in the Jammu. So that means 22 or 22 or 5 seats from these 90 seats, which will be equally distributed between Kashmir Valley and the Jammu, that's 45 and 45, and they will be reserved. And on these reserved seats, like from Dalit, there will not be, only those who will be able to actually contest.
Now, I have a quick intro here. So the the two things that the proponents are in India are talking about with reference to the delimitation exercise. So they say that Jammu and Kashmir did not, which is occupied and now illegally annexed Kashmir, did not undergo delimitation in 2008 like the rest of India. The last delimitation in IOJK was carried out in 1995-96. Secondly, the J&K Reorganization Act 2019 has increased the number of assembly seats from 107 to 114, and therefore this calls for delimitation.
It will be 90, not because 24 seats have been reserved for the other part of Kashmir.
Okay.
So the effective strength is 90. Out of these 90 is 45 and 45 they will distribute between Jammu and Kashmir Valley. In what context? Because the Kashmir Valley had more seats because it had a more population, and
right.
Seats are distributed as per the population. Even if you distribute seats as per the geography, then also the seats of this Chenab Valley and this Pir Panchal, both Muslim majority regions of Jammu, they get increased. Not the Jammu Tawi region, which is the majority.
And so that's something that they don't want. Stay with me, Mr. Gillani. Let me pull in Ms. Zafar Qureshi here. Ms. Zafar Qureshi, what is your sense quickly of the meeting? As Mr. Gillani said, it was a great opportunity for Mr. Modi to tell the world capitals, here I am talking to the Kashmiri leaders. So clearly that's a diplomatic win for him. Secondly, this exercise of delimitation, which seems to be menacing, which seems to have some kind of sleight of hand. So give me your sense of what you think of the meeting and what Mr. Modi has got out of it.
Thanks, Ajaz Sahab. Absolutely, as Iftikhar Sahab and Ms. Tehmina Janjua said as well, this meeting was a complete PR exercise for the Modi government, both to show within his vote bank that, look, we are doing something and the people of Kashmir or their lapdogs are with them, but also to the international community that, they're trying to portray that the people of Kashmir are with them. However, one thing we must not forget is that it was a complete failure because even in Modi's own admission, he said, Dil ki duriyan hai, both from Delhi and from the hearts as well. And that is a complete admission of his failure and the narrative that the Modi fascist government has been perpetrating, projecting across the globe to say, oh, the people of Kashmir are with him on the abrogation of Article 370. In terms of the gain, I don't think there was anything gained, especially for the Gupkar Gang, as the Indian government and the media calls them. There wasn't any. It was more of them a directive to say, look, we are going ahead with our plan that we want. We're not going to be, bringing back anything in terms of the statehood or 370. Our plan is that we will do the delimitation. And I think there's an important point that we need to notice there, as Ambassador Janjua mentioned to everyone. This whole exercise has been done to get that backing from the Jammu sides under the new government they want to bring in Kashmir after the delimitation to get away from the Article 370. That case still resides in the Indian Justice Court, which hasn't been ruled out yet. And by bringing up, this is our analysis, and I think by bringing in a new political system, a new political party where the majority comes from Jammu, they will try to win that argument to say, look, the people are with us, we are going ahead as per the constitution. So that is sort of something that we do need to be aware of. We need to sort of highlight that onto the international media to say this is in violation against the United Nations resolutions. But as a Kashmiris, we have no hopes from the Gupkar alliance. And one thing that I want to mention clearly, you call them the leaders of Kashmir. They're not. They're the lapdogs of the Indian government. They do not represent the sentiments of the people of Kashmir. The true leadership of the people of Kashmir are the ones who have been imprisoned, the pro-freedom. Because not only do they represent the people of Kashmir who want freedom from the illegal Indian occupation, but they also represent those small fringe minority that want to be with India by making sure every Kashmiri gets the right of self-determination. Whereas the Gupkar alliance, or the Gupkar lapdog alliance, as I call them, purely represent the Indian interests for which they're being paid for, right? And we've seen that. And I think, as a media channel that understands the Kashmir issue, we need to call them for what they are, rather than calling them for Kashmiri leaders. They are Gupkar Gang, lapdog alliances.
Right. I agree more with you on that. My term for them have been quislings. But let me go back to Ambassador Janjua. Ambassador Janjua, given your long career as a diplomat, I want to get your sense of, the whatever strategy that Mr. Modi is embarked on. And within the broader ambit of that, could it possibly be that there are these tactical withdrawals in order to present a certain kind of picture to the outside world and to try and regain, the sort of, the diplomatic capital that India has been steadily losing? And if that is correct, then he will have to give something in order to bring some modicum of stability in occupied and illegal Kashmir. What could that possibly be?
Well, I agree with you, though there are two views about it. There's one view that no, it has been done according to a script, and the script was that these people, that there would be 5th August, and then there would be the Gupkar people who come together who are pro-India, and that script is being followed. And now they have these Gupkar people sitting in a meeting with the government. So the Indian Prime Minister tells the world that, look, I have the Indians, I have the Kashmiris sitting with me. But yes, the reality is that these are not the Kashmiris that the people of Kashmir feel they represent. They do not represent, and the word quisling is something that I would completely agree with. The fact is that you talk about diplomacy. There was a hearing at the Congress, and the acting Assistant Secretary of State for South Asia, Dean Thompson, said that Kashmir is one area where we have urged them, i.e. the Indians, to return to normalcy as quickly as possible. Now, what is normalcy? This is India's attempt to show that there's normalcy in Kashmir, but this is not normalcy. Normalcy is what we understand from what's coming out of the Indian media as well, and the international media as well, as there has been some pressure on the Indians by the Americans, by the new US administration, as well as by some of their friends and partners in Europe as well. So there is external pressure. But the one thing that I think Modi is looking for as a way out is statehood for Kashmir, and no matter what that means, how it delegitimizes the whole UN Security Council resolutions, how it is completely against those resolutions, how the continued human rights situation in Jammu and Kashmir is not being addressed, is something that we cannot ignore. As a Pakistani diplomat, it is essential that we continue to work on the reality that the UN Security Council resolutions are the touchstone for us, as well as the importance of underscoring.
So we must not dial down pressure on that count. Thank you so much. That was Ambassador Tehmina Janjua speaking with us. Very quickly, because I have barely a couple of minutes for this segment left. Iftikhar Gillani, what is the likely reaction of the Gupkar Gang, as Mr. Zafar Qureshi said? Let's not call them the leaders of the Kashmiri people. What are their options? I mean, they know that they are irrelevant to the Kashmiris now. How could they possibly try and make themselves relevant?
See, what exactly in this meeting has got, actually the Home Minister Amit Shah actually quite really explicitly actually told them this roadmap about first delimitation, and the delimitation, then election, then assembly, and then assembly, whatever assembly will that be, that will actually then recommend for the statehood, and that will go to the central government, and then central government will come to the legislation for the statehood. See, now this new assembly with the delimitation, the kind of delimitation they have in their mind, that will be a death for these political parties as well. But unfortunately, this great takeaway of this meeting was that National Conference, they agreed to participate in this delimitation commission, which they had boycotted earlier. Because since they have 3 members in the parliament, so they were the ex-officio members of delimitation commission. Without their participation, this delimitation commission was not able to function and go ahead. Now this delimitation commission, with their participation, I don't know what exactly they will do within this delimitation commission, but with their participation, now the delimitation commission will go ahead, and if this what exactly they have in their minds, the way they will distribute these seats, it will be a death for these political parties as well, because whatever the political capital they had, whatever the seats they used to get from either the Kashmir Valley or the Pir Panchala or Chenab Valley, which recently this district development this council elections also actually exhibited. So it is actually they do also have to actually think whether they have to live, whether they have to give their political capital to the BJP or to the other these political parties. It is a question for their survival as well. So
right.
What exactly I was this issue? The formula of keeping the Muslim representation in control has been actually practiced in India quite decades from the decades. Justice Rajendra Sachar committee that they discussed this quite in detail, that in whichever constituency in India which has a potential to elect a Muslim member of parliament, that constituency is declared as reserved for the Dalits. So it serves 2 purposes. One, to keep Dalits and Muslims in constant confrontation.
So basically what you're saying is that they have been doing this in mainland India, and now they are bringing that strategy to occupied Kashmir also. But Mr. Zafar Qureshi, very quickly, this seems to me to be something in which there is everything for Modi and zip, zilch and zero for the Kashmiris.
Absolutely, Ajaz Sahab. It's very clear from the meeting, the way it was scheduled and the way the no invites were sent. This was more orchestrated out of the blue book. A script was already there. This whole PR exercise were just to inform these quislings, as you term them, or the Gupkar Gang, to say, this is the plan. You're not getting anything out of it. We are going ahead with the delimitation. To be honest, even as a Kashmiri, we don't have any expectations from these Gupkar Gang Quslings or the Indian government. We're talking about a fascist government that refers to the Kashmiri Muslims as a thorn in their flesh.
Correct.
I mean, what expectations can we have them? And this Gupkar Gang alliance or the Gupkar Gang Quslings are nothing but the puppeteers.
So basically, the job out for the Kashmiris also and for Pakistan also in terms of diplomacy, in terms of trying to tell the world that what Mr. Modi is doing is essentially nothing more than optics. He is still wedded to the original plan. But he is now trying to go about it in a different way. And I think that's something which is very important to communicate to the rest of the world. Thank you so much, Sayyid Iftikhar Gillani. Thank you to Zafar Qureshi for speaking with us. We shall take a short break and return to discuss US President Joe Biden's meeting with Afghanistan's President Ashraf Ghani and the situation in Afghanistan. Stay with us. Welcome back to In Focus. Last Friday, US President Joe Biden met with top Afghan leaders Ashraf Ghani and Abdullah to demonstrate a continuing US commitment to Afghanistan as US troops withdraw. The partnership between Afghanistan and the United States is not ending, Biden said in an Oval Office meeting with Ghani and Abdullah. The Afghans are going to have to decide their future, what they want, and it won't be for a lack of US help, Biden was quoted as saying. The situation on the ground is, however, telling a different story. Not only are the Taliban gaining ground, they are showing their presence and strength in northern Afghanistan, which is not traditionally their stronghold. To discuss the situation further, I am joined by Rahimullah Yusufzai, resident editor of the news in Peshawar, and Hamdullah Hamdard, an Afghan journalist and commentator in Kabul. Now, it's interesting. Let me begin with Mr. Hamdard here. It is interesting that Mr. Ghani was, when he was speaking with reporters after the meeting, he said that the United States' decision to withdraw troops was a sovereign one, and it was Kabul's job to manage consequences. Those are his words. So there's a sense, Mr. Hamdard, of he can see what is coming, but he also said that they have managed to take the same day, which is last Friday, take back 5 districts from Taliban. So give me a sense of how you look at the meeting and what do you think was the essence of it and whether the US commitments can be sustained with what they call over-the-horizon capabilities, given the situation on the ground.
Whatever President said, that Biden's decision was a sovereign one. Of course, we cannot change the U.S. decision. They were here in Afghanistan. They came to Afghanistan, and their pretext was to fight al-Qaeda leaders, which was later found in our neighboring country. And then they continued the war for almost 20 years. After that, Biden has said so many times that their existence in Afghanistan is not ending this war. That's why they decided to withdraw their troops completely from Afghanistan, which is also in the favor of Afghanistan, in the favor of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, and in the favor of Afghan people. Because there will be no other motive for continuing the fight in Afghanistan once the U.S. troops leave Afghanistan. So far, the fight was only for that reason. And here, the Taliban, who captured some districts, it was not based on their resistance or fight. Some community elders intervened. They talked to those soldiers, and they were left for Taliban, and those areas were taken by Taliban. But after that, once the military operations started against Taliban, almost all those districts were taken back by the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, by the security forces, especially the ANDS, Afghanistan National Directorate of Security Forces, and overall the ANDSF. At the moment, the war in some of the districts is going on between the Taliban and the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. and the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan at the moment seems to be in a stronger position. However, a few days back, they were not in the same position. The pressure was on the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, but now more pressure is on the Taliban, and even some Taliban leaders have said that they do not want to continue war, or they will not go for the option of war, and they may start or restart the peace negotiation in Doha sooner. However, the war that they started in the districts, that have definitely caused lots of trouble for the common people. The schools are closed, and people cannot saw their the people cannot live their normal life there. They cannot continue. And most of the people, they have left their places, their homes, and they have moved to their neighboring provinces. For example, I'll give you the example of Paktia province. When the war started in Zurmat district, the people moved to Paktika province, into the capital of Paktia, and even to Kabul and Ghazni and Logar provinces. But now the situation has restored to some extent. However, in some districts, we still have the war. One good news from President Ashraf Ghani's visit of the U.S. in meeting Joe Biden was that Joe Biden promised, despite of withdrawing from Afghanistan, a complete withdrawal is decided from Afghanistan. Their military existence will not be in Afghanistan anymore, but they will continue their military assistance, their financial assistance, and even technical assistance, but not military forces. And $3.3 billion for the next year was promised, and hopefully Afghanistan will receive that. That is enough for Afghanistan's military forces, because they are capable, they are trained in the continuing war. I guess Afghanistan has the military forces. It is incomparable with all the world, because they are trained in the continued war in Afghanistan, and they can fight better.
Okay, I'm happy to hear that, because a lot of commentators are actually saying, and this includes comments by officials in Kabul about the fact that the Afghan National Security Forces are stretched. There's also the issue of, there was the report about how no reinforcements could reach 21 soldiers of Afghan Special Forces, and they were left to die. But let me pull in Rahimullah Yusufzai on this. Rahimullah Yusufzai, there are two things. One is that we saw how the Taliban have been operating in northern Afghanistan, how they captured the Sher Khan port. But there are reports about encirclements in Kunduz. And there is also another very interesting observation with reference to Mr. Ghani's Washington visit. And this is by Ronald Newman, who's a former US ambassador to Kabul. And he said that at a time when morale is incredibly shaky and things are going downhill, anything one can do to help shore up morale and shore up the government is worth doing. And he went on to say, inviting Ghani here is a pretty strong sign that we are backing him. So it seems to me that more than any substantive help from the United States, is more like the United States telling all stakeholders that we are still backing Ashraf Ghani.
Yes, I think that, you talked about the situation in northern Afghanistan, the military situation. So that I think is obvious. We have seen that, Taliban have made rapid gains. The soldiers, the militiamen were surrendering. And in some cases, the local tribal elders became involved and they negotiated surrender. So we know that, and we have all the figures. And also, when the Afghan government claims that they have recaptured some territory districts, then the Taliban are very quick to deny that. And then they come up with videos, and those videos are very clear that they are still controlling these outlying districts. So I think Taliban have made very good use of social media. The same Taliban, as you know, in the past, they were against taking pictures, but now they are doing it in a big way and trying to, show that they are in control in many areas. Also, I think that, Taliban are actually besieging 5-6 districts, 5-6 provincial capitals, which is very important. And they claim, they claim that they can easily enter Kunduz and Talukan and Pulikhumri and Memana and, Saripul, but they are waiting for orders from their leadership. So we have to see whether
yes,
that is true.
Just to corroborate what you're saying, there were news about the march on Mazar-e-Sharif. They went to the outskirts and then they pulled back, and Zabiullah Mujahid was stating that they were asked to fall back because we're waiting for all the US troops to withdraw before we make any further gains. But quickly, Rahimullah Yusufzai, what is your sense of, because we can see that the US is still trying to work out what they call over-the-horizon capabilities. I mean, they're looking for bases, they are working a number of options, but they still haven't settled down on any one option. So it seems that it is still mostly on paper, and if they are going to use their aerial assets from their aircraft carriers, then that's a very expensive option. It's also a more dangerous option for air-to-air refueling and the rest of it. So what exactly do you think they can achieve through these over-the-horizon capabilities, and whether that will be enough for the Afghan National Security Forces to gain lost ground?
Ijazab, airstrikes, you can make, you can damage your enemy. You can, keep the Taliban at bay. But you need also ground forces. That's important to be able to sustain those gains. So only airstrikes will not actually achieve much. That's why I think the Americans are still a bit confused what to do. I heard somewhere that there were some American drone strikes recently, especially in Helmand. So I don't know if that is true. But if that is true, it is the start of the, the American, say, counter-terrorism or whatever operations. The Americans, I think they accept money.
Rahimullah, it's, you remember and you know much better than I do that there was a time when the American Special Forces were mounting literally dozens of night raids every night. And this went on for a couple of years, and it didn't really achieve much. But let me, before I wrap up, go back to Hamdullah Hamdard. Hamdullah Hamdard, I have a slightly different question, just to gauge the situation on the ground. You one of those educated Afghans, a journalist, a writer, an observer of the scene. There are a number of others like yourself, both men and young women. And the reports that are coming out of people trying to get out. Now, trying to get out is a good, although unfortunate, benchmark for assessing where a country might be headed. So my question to you is, given an option, would you stay or would you also leave?
As an Afghan, as an educated Afghan, and as someone who wants to decide the future of this country, I would choose to stay here. In my call on Taliban and the Afghan government will always be to go for the peace talks, continue the negotiation and save the life of our countrymen. And the call on my neighboring countries, Pakistan, Iran, and other countries, is to cooperate with the Afghan peace negotiation process. This peaceful Afghanistan is in the favor of everyone. I will continue to stay in Afghanistan even if I die, and my family will also stay in Afghanistan. We will work for Afghanistan in whatever the situation is. However, I have the capability, I have the, a better economy to go to a foreign country or choose to stay there. I can live in Turkey, I can live in US, I can live in Canada, or even UK, or anywhere, even in Pakistan, where in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa I was born there. I can stay there as well. But I will always choose, and my decision is not changeable. I'll keep staying in Afghanistan.
Inshallah, you will have a long life and you will see your children and your grandchildren. And I completely agree with you. And this is what Pakistan has consistently, officially also said at all levels, that Pakistan's own security is intrinsically linked with the peace in Afghanistan. Thank you so much. That was Hamdullah Hamdard. Thank you also to Rahimullah Yusufzai. This is all from In Focus this evening. We shall see you tomorrow at the same time. Keep following our latest updates on social media at indus.news. Good night and goodbye.